Didn't call you out by name. We just want to welcome you all and so happy that you came. I know some of you were at the other training 2 weeks ago where I was in people and had to sort of rush through to get to churches. So that's why we set up this churches training. So Paul, would you like to make some comments before you go?
No, I'm just psyched that you're doing this. You're already doing a great job. I can't wait to watch.
Thanks, Paul. So we are recording it. So if you want to share with any of your teammates who couldn't make it. So we're going to go through churches today, as I just said. But I just wondered, before I just kind of jump into it, was there anything in particular anybody wanted to know about before I just, start doing a top down? I don't see anybody. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to, I only want to share a portion of my screen. Which portion do I want to share? This one. Okay. So are you seeing churches on my screen? Okay, thank you, Paul. So just, sorry, I'm prepping, getting all up here so I can see you. And again, I do have the chat box up, but I might not see it. So here we are. We're in a fake UMC conference today. I think this is going to be better because I made sure there's data in here. So this is the typical screen that you see when you come in, but you don't have to have it this way. You can change this to anything you want. So if I go into results field, I can say, oh, I don't want to see the conference number. I just want to see the image, the name, the email address. Sort of, no, I don't want to know their mailing address, the district, the charge, and their status. That's what I want to see when I first come in. So this is what I want for my screen. So if I want to shoot someone a quick email, it's right there. Their business phone is right there. I can call them. So I'm going to save this as a search, and I'm going to call it my default screen. And then I save it. And then I can go in here, which says default screen, and I can manage my searches and call my default screen my default screen. So now if I go out someplace else and I come back in to churches, I'm going to still have my default screen. So that's how you change what you see when you first come in. I'm going to go through a church record first, and then we can talk about this filtering that's on the right side. So I'm going to go into Amesbury UMC, which is in Lisa's and my neck of the woods. I'm in Connecticut and Lisa's up in Massachusetts somewhere. So Amesbury UMC is the church short name. I can give it a church long name, which typically a lot of conferences do this. So if this was called Amesbury First, the long name would be First United Methodist Church. We wouldn't want to just have first here because there's too many firsts. So if we had email subscription lists, we can add the church to it so that if anyone sends an email to the financial Yodel email subscription list, they'll get it. The email address is there, and then you could put in an alternate. And what happens with the alternate email is when you send an email, you can say only send it to the primary or send it to the primary and the alternate. So I'll be the alternate. If this person does not want to get any email at all, we would make them do not email, but we want to get email. So the phone numbers, they automatically get set up like a phone number. The system automatically, oh, I didn't put enough numbers in there. When I save it, it should, there it goes. So then it automatically turns it into a phone number format. Mailing address is obvious. It's where their mail goes. You can put in a country if you want. I think that might be more particular to our friends on the borders. So like Michigan may have people who live in Canada. Same with Alaska, Pacific Northwest, and then folks down in Texas and New Mexico might have churches that cross over into Mexico. So you can pick a country. You can use a province. So again, if this is in Quebec, you can put that. And if they're in a county, well, there's no counties here, but you can add counties. That is a category. So if you need counties added to your Book River system, talk to whoever the database manager is and ask them to add counties to the mail county category. That's more of an admin function. Now, Amesbury, for some reason, doesn't have a physical address. Well, I happen to know that the physical is the same as the mailing. So if I just click on that, it automatically populates the physical address with what's in the mailing, and vice versa. If it, if the mailing was empty, you click on same as physical. These latitude and longitudes are helpful for Google Maps and things like that. If you have a Brook River website and you have a church locator and the address of the church is, at the end of Main Street, take a right at the old United Methodist Church. That's now a UCC church, go a mile, then take a left. Well, that's not going to work in Google Maps. So putting in the latitude and longitude of the church can be super helpful with that issue. This is just some information about the church. Doesn't show up anywhere, but you could just put some information there. You can put the URL of the church website here, or you can add new links, which are like Twitter and Facebook and all this other Flickr and Google Plus and blah, blah, blah. So if they have a YouTube site, you can say it's a YouTube site and put their link in there. So that's helpful to people who like YouTube. So we keep going down. If there are files that you want to attach to the church, like if you happen to have some historical documents that you want to keep in here, titles, things like that, typically an archivist would hold on to. Sometimes it's nice to have it in their record if someone needs it really quick for some legal issue or something like that. So you can actually click on browse and upload it from your computer. I'm afraid what this might bring up. So you just click on that. This is my computer. I can just click on, I don't know if that's a legit, but I'm going to remove that. Login credentials. This is used for the church dashboard. And if you are just starting out and you want us to set up login credentials for you, we can do that. Typically, conferences start with the GCFA number as the username and password. So we can set those up, and then you can let your churches know that their username and password are both their GCFA number. And when they go into the dashboard, they can go ahead and change their credentials. Online publishing is, I'm not, Paul, I don't know. I know why you would put a friendly URL, but I'm not sure what the day-to-day use of this is.
Yeah, that's more for content, but if you wanted, a ever so slightly more friendly URL for your, churches, you could put in the church name there without spaces or anything, like on the website.
Okay. Sandy is asking, can the local church update all of the fields for location, blah, 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 or can only the district and conferences? So if I save this, I can go into their church dashboard and I can show you what they can update. So any church that you go into their record, you can go into their church dashboard. So if I go into church information in the dashboard and I click on update, it's going to allow me to make changes. Now, they can't change their name. So if they do have a change to their name, they have to let the conference or the district office know. They can't change their physical address because if a church up and moves, we really need to know that. So they need to tell you. Then here, let's go down to, a lot of times we make this invisible in the dashboard, and I am not seeing. Yeah, they only can put their website URL here as the default dashboard. We can change that. We can help you add those fields to the view that drives the church dashboard. So the answer right now, Sandy, is no, but we can put that in if that's something that your conference would like to do. So someday we'll do more about the church dashboard, but let's finish up with churches first. So registrations, if a church registers for an event that you had, then and there it shows their registrations and which forms they have filled out. It's almost a duplication, but sometimes something will come in where a whole bunch of people registered with the same address as the church. So more registrations would show up and then only one form would show there. So now we go into the UMC information, district charge. Now this is something that was recently done, is you don't have to put in a charge for every single church that's a single point charge. You can just say, this is a single point charge, and here's a single point charge name. Now, if they were part of a multi-point charge, you would choose the charge from there and say it's multi-point. Or alternatively, do this single point and just give it a name. It's the Amesbury charge. Now, as far as GCFA is concerned, the single point charge just automatically inherits the GCFA number of the church, this single point charge church, where in multi-point charges, the GCFA number for the charge is typically whatever you decide is the lead church in the charge, however your conference decides that. So this isn't in a cluster or a parish, it is in a conference, but no, it's not in Baltimore, Washington, it's in New England. It's in the New England conference. So you see how if I just start typing letters here, the choices that have these letters pop up. So I am going to choose New England. It wasn't any place before that. If it were, you would put the change date when it was moved from one conference to another. So when we had all those mergers of conferences, you know, in Upper New York and Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine and Massachusetts, when all that happened, that's how you would have said. They used to be in the Wisconsin conference, and here is when that changed. So if this were a satellite church, you would relate the parent church to this. So Amesbury, let's see, do we have Newburyport? We're going to say Amesbury is a satellite of the Newburyport UMC. And then I can unlink that, which does nothing. I mean, it just takes it out of there. So it's no longer linked. If it were a satellite church, we would say Newburyport is the satellite to Amesbury. So you would link the satellite church to the parent church. If there are church campuses, which are a little different than satellites, satellites typically have their own GCFA number, they get appointments, things like that. Campuses would be a large church that has multiple locations where they have worship and small groups and things like that. So you could relate campuses to this church. So you would set up church campuses the same way that you would set up a church, but then you just tell it it's a campus. Appointments, this is where we typically don't unlink. If this appointment, if an appointment ends, you open the appointment and you put in an end date. So I just clicked on Jamie's name and this should open her record. And the reason for this is because if you just unlink it, her appointment record is no longer linked to the church. So if it was linked in this by mistake, you could unlink it. But if you want to keep the historical record that Jamie was serving at Amesbury, you would put an end date into it. And then that way, Jamie no longer shows up as the clergy currently serving. She goes down here into the all the people who have served in the past. So they're here. So that's the difference between clergy currently serving and all appointments. So again, this is kind of important for new people. Don't unlink an appointment from a church unless it's incorrect. If they're no longer serving, go into the appointment record and end it. So this is just GCFA number, conference number, if your conference gives your church's numbers, and appointments. You can add new appointments here. Oh, no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. You could, if you unlinked it, you could link it back this way if you found the empty record. So this church is active. Now, sometimes churches are active but dormant, and it means that they weren't legally closed or merged, but nothing is going on there. The building is there. They haven't voted at annual conference to close it. It hasn't merged into another church, so it's dormant. Congregation type, charter, charter mission, ecumenical, mission church, new church start, satellite. So these are the different congregation types. This cabinet ranking has to do with the appointment making tool. So the reason I'm seeing it is because I'm logged in as an admin. Not everybody sees that. Then is this a shared ministry? So if it is, you pick the form, federated, union, merged, yoked. So if it were a federated church, you would want to choose the other denomination that is part of that federated or union or whatever it is. And you could put multiples in here because sometimes there's 3 denominations making it a shared ministry. Ethnicity, these are the UMC designated ethnicities. If you want to add another ethnicity, then you need to talk to whoever the admin is and ask them to add another one. Like we had somebody the other day wanting to add Haitian. So they added Haitian in the ethnicities category, but they give it a number 2 because when we start syncing to GCFA, that they can't take Haitian, they can only take Black. So Haitian gets translated to GCFA as Black. So if you can give it a number that equals something else in here, you know, sometimes with Asian, people want Chinese, Japanese, Korean, whatever it is, they all get a 1. So even though you are able to differentiate between the different ethnicities of your churches, when you sync with GCFA, they'll just take it as Asian. Worship languages.
Barbara,
Yes,
Sorry, could I ask a question about the ethnicity part?
sure.
It's my understanding that because of the connection with GCFA, it's important. So if you say a church is Hispanic Latino, for instance, that church actually has to meet the GCFA percentage, which I can't remember offhand. Um, Latarsha may know off the top of her head, but I just want to lift that up. It's not like, oh, it seems like it's a Hispanic church, so we're going to call it that, but it actually has to be that by GCFA definition. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Latarsha, can you answer that?
Yeah, our definition is 70% of the membership has to be either like Hispanic or Latino or 70% Black. So it's 70% of that membership base is what the ethnicity of the church will be.
Thanks, Latarsha. That's really helpful.
Thanks, Laura, for the question. And then worship languages. Again, this is one where you can pick more than one. You know, they may have worship services in English and others in Spanish, so you can indicate that here. And again, with these languages, if you have another language that's not on here, whatever it is, your admin can add it, but then you need to find a language that's similar. Otherwise, that language won't sync over. So location type is just, you know, where are they? Are they in the burbs? Are they urban, town, which is, I guess, a small urban, or are they rural? EIN is, you know, it's their employer ID, the federal employer ID number. If they have a corporate name that's different, so if their church full name is actually a DBA, which some churches do, they don't go and change their corporate name just to add a couple words to their name. You can list their actual corporate name here. Secretary of State ID, that's whatever it is. So I'm going to go into mergers next, which is a little more detailed, a little more work. So does anyone have any questions up to where we are now? No? Okay. So there's two ways to do mergers. Just a really quick, it merged on this date. Now you just pick a date and it merged into this church. It merged into Brentwood. And then make sure that down below somewhere is the status. Did anyone see that? Nope. There is a merged date. Not merge date. I'm looking for the status. So I can't find it by scrolling around. I can, in this little jump to box, I can just type in status and click on church status. So right now it's active, but I'm merging it. So I'm going to change that to merged. So that's the simple way. This church merged into that church. So this church is no longer open, it's merged, and you're done. Or you can use this more detailed church merger, which I'm gonna leave even though I didn't save. So what this does is it gives me a more detailed way of saying what happened in the merger. So this one is a consolidation. The other choice is consumed. So the difference is a consolidation is typically two small churches decide to merge together and they become a larger church. So these two merged together, they decided to keep the name Amesbury, but it wasn't that either one of them consumed the other. They're like the merger of two equals became one new one. Or if we do this consumed, this means that Amesbury and Stratham merged, and Amesbury is the remaining church. So that means that Amesbury consumed Stratum. So that's the difference between consumed and consolidated. Consolidated is two coming together to become a third church, and consumed is one church consumes into it the other church. So all their members move over, everything just moves over to the church that remains.
Barbara, I have a question. This is Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
If two small churches close and become a brand new third church, so they merge and they become a third church, so
Yeah.
neither one of them keeps their name.
Yep. So this would be consolidated, a consolidation. Amesbury and Stratum merge to become Exeter. So now, and you would have had to put the new church in as a church before you do this, right?
Oh.
So Amesbury and Stratum decided to consolidate together and become Exeter.
So the active next to Amesbury, what does that signify?
Well, that should get changed to merged, but I haven't done that. I haven't done
Oh,
that
okay.
yet. I could do it right now if I put it in. I didn't save it when I changed it. So that is in the church status field. Church status is, where'd it go? If anyone sees it, stop me. I don't know why I didn't jump to it. Church status. There it is, church status. I'm going to say merged. So I'm going to save and return. And it takes me right back to my merger information. So now we have Amesbury is merged, Stratum is merged, and Exeter is the church that they consolidated the two to become Exeter. Anybody else have any questions about mergers? So-
Barbara, I just have one in the, when you look up a little bit in the church record, you have the shared ministry form, and one of the options there is merged.
Yeah,
For this type of a merger, you do not click anything in that, correct? What's that merged for?
so shared ministry form, I'm not sure why merged is there. Maybe Latarsha could speak to that. I've never used that one. Federated Union and Yoked are the only ones I've used. So Latarsha, how is that different than a church status of merged?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to give you the complete definition for it.
Okay.
But it is completely different. It is talking about those churches. So it is completely different from a merged church. But let me find that definition for you right quick.
Okay, great. So while Latarsha's searching, and just jump right back in, Latarsha, when you find it. So here is, so the reason why this got added was because just by using this doesn't give the full story, and then you kind of have to go write notes somewhere. So we added this functionality, and it's super helpful when you're going back to, you know, historically, like whatever happened to Amesbury? Well, now you know. So then start date's when worship services started. Charter date was when they legally chartered the church. Close date, closure reason. This is becoming important for GCFA wants to know why. Why did they close? These are the choices. What's happened to the property? If they closed the church, what happened to it? It's for sale, it's pending, it was sold, transfer. So I'm not sure what trust clauses are, but that might have something to do with the church taking the congregation when they leave, they take the church with them, the building. Laura, do you know the difference between those?
Yeah, the trust clause is a pretty big deal in the United Methodist Church, especially right
Right.
now with
Right.
the, and it is, you know, briefly, United Methodist churches have a trust clause built into them where the property and the building always belong to the annual conference and can't go with the church
Mhm.
if it leaves.
But sometimes it does. They do take it these days. So that's what that is. These are legal things, what happened to the property or what is with the property. But typically the titles in the conference name, all the buildings belong to the conference, but then sometimes it's different. And then if you change the property status, you could put the date that you did that. Here's some notes that you can put in about that, about the status. This is lay members to annual conference. We understand that lay members are allotted based on a charge, but appointments and leadership assignments in Brook River are not based on a charge, they're based on a church. So that's why this is here. So in particular, there's a lot of single point charges, so you would be putting it here anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
So Latarsha, did you get your
I'm
definition?
totally up.
Yes, so the merged church in that area is referring to when two different denominations, like if you have the Baptist and a Methodist, they're merging together to form a different coherent church. So this is a merge when you have
Right.
two different denominations merging.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wonder if I should change the data core label on that to like indicate like merged,
Denomination.
two different denominations or something like that.
Yeah, that would make it clearer.
Well, let me get into that. Let me get into that on the computer and find out for you. And I will call you back, Nancy. Is the 704?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll change it.
Okay. So do not send to GCFA. I'm not really sure why you would choose that for church. You want it most, but if you don't, you just say do not send. Here are the people who currently have leadership assignments. So this way you can tell Mike is a conference big shot. Lisa Abbott. Lisa got to be the treasurer of this church. Nice, Lisa. You got enough hats you're wearing. Miss Skeet Vanderlapunch. That's a name. Is the church historian. Is there really someone named Vanderlapunch in the New England district?
These are made up names.
Oh, okay. So in the church dashboard, the system tells you when. So if you had wrong one. If your churches have to go in and put their leadership in through the church dashboard, and again, this is a different training. I'm not doing this right now, but this is how they do it. They go in and they put their leaders in. Finished, please let us know. So when you finish doing your leaders, you'd say, I'm done. Thank you for letting us know. Then when you go into the church, it will show the dashboard if the church had submitted its leadership list in the church dashboard. So that's handy. There's another way to look for that. It's under dashboard submissions, but not everybody has access to that. And that would give a list of everyone who submitted, but this is a quick way to go and see if a particular church did what they were supposed to do. Obvious service times, that's just a text field. And this would show up typically in the church locator on the website. Handicapped access, same thing. Driving directions, same thing. That's if, you know, Joe's barn burned down 100 years ago, but you still have to take a right there. You put that in there. Facility attributes. This is basically set up after Hurricane Sandy, of when you know, when a whole bunch of conferences were all looking for churches that could house people. Do they have showers? Are they certified? Do they have warehouse space? Things like that. So that's so the churches can let the conference or the districts know that they're available to help out in a disaster. Theological preference is typically not seen by most people. Again, you're only seeing this because I'm an admin. Those are things that go into the appointment making tool. I don't want them, I want them to be enthusiastic. Here's your personage information, phone, address, date, zip, personage tags. This church does not have a personage, or they do. It's rented. Pastor doesn't live there, or pastor does live there. So those are just tags that you would use. This annual apportionment data, this is also in the appointment making tools, so cabinet and the bishop can see how are they doing with their apportionments this year. That's a little bit different than the metrics. In the metrics, it gives that information on a historical annual basis. So those fields just above I was showing you had to do with this year. So here are the metrics that also get seen in the appointment making tool. And it does have their apportionment, what the amount was, how much of it did they pay, and what was the total paid. So if it wasn't 100%, you know, their apportionment was $1,000 and they only paid $90, $900, then they would have paid 90%. So this information again is in here for the appointment making tools, and just for historical, you can go in and look and see how this church is doing based on those metrics. Compensation records. This is kind of the precursor to the bigger clergy compensation that we're building out for a bunch of conferences right now. But this is how you can keep track of compensation info. So when somebody perhaps gets first appointed, they have one record, but then maybe in the middle of the year, or you know, if they do July 1st to December 31st, it might change on January 1st of the next year. So you can keep track of all the compensation info in here. There's also additional fields that have to do with other things that your benefits manager may want, like do they have a housing allowance or a parsonage, accountable reimbursement, all of these, you know, fields that are important. So do they get equitable comp, district comp, and then here's all the UMPIP type information, insurance, which insurance have they chosen, health, dental, vision, life, and then once the pastor approves it, they can come in here and type their name. The district can come in here, approve that way. More filing information about the clergy person, you know, so you want to make sure that they're receiving, you know, is this minimum salary based on their clergy status? If it's not, then the DS might want to know about that. So those are compensation records. If the church changed names, there's the previous name, here's the name change. And we have notes and interactions just like we do in the other views. so you can add a new note or an interaction. You know, this might be a phone call. It's a phone call today, details. Call the pastor, why isn't she receiving minimum salary? So I'm gonna make this private, and so the DS knows now, okay, I called on 10/27 about that issue. So why haven't I heard back from her? So it's, you know, it's like a CRM, customer relationship manager, all in one place, one-stop shopping. So I've run through all the records. I do want to go into filtering, but it's 1:48. So if you have any questions, can we do that? And then I'll look a little more at filtering with you. I don't see any hands or heads nodding. No questions? Come on, Florida. You guys always have a question for me. Okay, so this filtering blocks out the churches that are merged. So if you were looking for a church and you couldn't find it, it might be merged or closed. So you have to unclick these so you can see them. Here, if I click has current assignments, this shows me all the churches that have leadership assignments or they have current appointments. It's not showing them to me. I can get those to appear if I go into my results fields and I go down to appointments. I can get the start date, the end date. See how I have to open up the related information? The people have to open them up to get their first name and last name, appointment position, and I want to know the short name of their church. So if I select this and I select has current appointments, I'm going to see all the appointments for Dover UMC. There they are. Current. East Kingston has this one, and Exeter has a whole bunch with the no-named pastor. Visible contacts. I don't know what that is. Is that the people aren't hidden on the web? Are those the churches that aren't hidden on the website?
Yeah, it's like any record can be sort of visible on the website or not. And so that's just, you know, visibility. It's a little less important on a contact record than content. So
Then you can find out which churches are on the whichever email subscription list you have set up. Well, so Amesbury's not here, even though I signed them up, because they're hidden, because they're merged. So that's why that's not showing. You can find all your churches in a particular district. We want the rectangle district, or we want the circle district, and there they are. Search by status, active, closed, merged. Obviously, merged isn't going to work unless you do that. Now you're seeing all the churches that have merged. I'm going to unmerge Amesbury. You can search by GCFA number, you can search by conference number. If there's something else that you want to search for, you can search on anything that's in a church record, right? So if I want to find all of the, well, this isn't going to help, but if I wanted to find all the churches in a county, you could do that. If that's an important thing to you, but you first have to set up your counties and then tag each church with their county, and then that will help you. I know some conferences set up their appointment list by county, so it's important for them to have the county. You can look up all the churches that are a single point charge. Nothing. That's because Amesbury's merged. You can just anything in here, anything in a church record you want to search by, all you have to do is click filter fields and then scroll down and find it. So the parsonage information, if I I can look at the parsonage tags and find all of the churches where the pastor does not live in the parsonage, and it would give me whichever ones those are. So we have 8 minutes left for questions. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. It's Sandy again in Florida.
Hi, Sandy.
I have questions. People come, what churches have preschools attached to them? Is there a way to figure that out?
We can add that field. I don't think we have a preschool field, but we certainly could add that. So
I could
yeah.
ask my admin to see if, or I could ask my other districts in our conference to see if that would be something that they could use as well.
Yeah, that's totally makes sense. I'm surprised no one's asked for that before, because that is a, you know, it's a frequently asked question, you know, how do I find out what churches have a preschool? So you could location and other information. You could have, you know, a little drop down or a yes, no button, has a preschool or has after school. I mean, there could be a whole child care drop down, has a preschool, has after school, has summer camp, all those kinds of things. That might be something that Steve could add for you. Any other questions?
I
These
suppose I could add that
selections,
too. I could potentially add schools to the data core, you know, if every single conference wanted it, just a thought.
Yeah, I think it's a, I
it's
think
just
it's
my need, or if anyone else could use that, but I know okay. And those
well, I
that's on the left side, the exclude merge, exclude closed, all that going down, those are set ones, right?
yes.
You can't change those.
You could ask your admin to add an additional handy field. So these would be called handy fields because it's handy to search on them. So if there's one that everybody uses all the time, your admin can add it down here.
Okay.
Hey, Sandy, is it schools or is it preschools? And or is it school? You know what I mean? Is it like more than one, or is it a list, like a related list of schools, or just typed in the school name?
A lot of them want to know, a lot of my, like the DS or Ministry of Protection wants to know how many churches have preschools.
Mhm.
We have a couple of churches that have actual schools that they have, K through 12 or K through 8. But those are few. It's mostly churches with preschools.
So
Would
for
it be best to like have it just be a field, like you could have it be called preschools, other schools, or you could just have a new database object under contacts called schools, and you could type in and it's this type, it's K through 1, or is that overkill?
I ask my other districts that I work with to see, you know, what would work with them. To me, preschools works fine. That's what most of my questions are about.
I think, Paul, from a workers' comp perspective, the conferences are looking for, okay, what associated schools and camps are there. So if we made it a drop down called schools/camps, and we had preschool, after school, K to 8, K to 12, summer camp, things like that in the category, that would be helpful.
How did you come up with that list so quickly of the types? Did you already have that written down, or like how did you do that so quickly?
Because the New York conference, all of their churches and preschools and camps get their workers' comp policy through the conference. And so I've worked on the workers' comp and I know what all the different, those are all the different kinds of schools and camps that I can pick up. There might be more than just summer camp.
Maybe I could just create a thing called schools and put in your little list of types, and then that way the person relates it, and then it happens on a data core level.
Yeah, I would call it schools/camps, because then it covers all kinds of summer camp, vacation Bible school,
Wait.
vacation camp.
Isn't there another thing under contact called like organizations or related organizations? Maybe click on that. Is that not
But
a place to use it?
But no, it might not be. If they just have after-school care, it's not really a school. They have after-school care in their building, right? So it wouldn't be a separate thing per se, unless it was like an outside organization perhaps running daycare in, the basement or something.
Okay, all right, we can talk about that. I don't know, I wish I could get a show of hands of people. Why don't you, can we look at the gallery somehow? If we could somehow have everybody raise their hand, like, who would like to have in the UMC data course schools with the different types? If you would like that, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Who would actually dislike that? Give me a thumbs down if you would dislike it in the core. Like if it would be muddying. All right, I guess I'll just probably put it in then. That was like 75% at least of the people. Okay,
Great idea.
all right, cool.
Okay, so does anybody else have any other questions? We just need to make sure Latarsha shows up for the next one too. So when we have the GCFA questions, we've got Latarsha on the line directly.
Sorry, I was late.
Oh, no, I didn't even know you were here because there were too many people for me to see on my screen. You got pushed down. So I'm glad I found you.
Hey, Barbara, if you slack me that list of types, I'll just go ahead and add it real
I
quick.
will. Okay,
Okay,
will do. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you all being here. And if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email, Barbara E versus Barbara E at brookriver.com. If you have any questions, and we have another people training for those who didn't go to the one 2 weeks ago or thought I talked too fast and skipped stuff. We're doing it again, and Laura should be there.
Hey, Barbara, could you put your that email address you just gave into the chat,
Oh, of course.
please?
Yes.
If you're willing anyway.
Yes.
I'd wanted to follow up with you after the last one, and then I never got around to tracking down your email.
No worries. Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I still have my same cell number if you want to call me. I've called you enough times. Yes, Laura is a conference secretary and she's such a wealth of knowledge. I've relied on her a lot over the years. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for the kind shout out.
Absolutely. And look who's here, Steve from Florida. He missed me so much. Steve, your people have been great. They've asked so many questions. We actually got a really good idea. Claudia, was that your idea to put the schools in? No, who said that? Sandy. It was Sandy's idea. Yep. To have a new
Super.
drop down for schools and
Great.
camps.
We got great people in Florida.
Yeah, they're awesome. We'd love to come and
Blame
visit
it on
you.
Claudia, though.
We wanted to come and visit you all, but Steve ended up coming to New Hampshire last week. We wanted to come to Florida, but didn't happen. Maybe next time. So thank you all again. Hope to see you in 2 weeks, and shoot me an email if you have any questions.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Bye.
Good job, Barbara. Thank you.